So this is me. I'm Scott Ball. I'm a product manager at Esri. And what I spend my time thinking about and doing is figuring out how to bring this powerful field of GIS that so many of us in the GIS community have studied and understand very well, how to make that accessible to everybody globally. Doesn't matter what part of the business you're in, we're trying to bring the power of mapping and geography to you. And so we do that a number of different ways. Specifically, I work on some products that integrate mapping capabilities into Microsoft business systems. Some of those are Office, SharePoint, and what we're going to be talking about today, which is Power BI. First thing I want to do is I want to kind of set the stage on who we are. If you're not familiar with Esri, Esri has been around for 40 plus years now and helped to found the field of GIS, or Geographical Information Systems. We build the most powerful mapping and spatial analytics products in the world. We work with very large organizations. We work with governments. We also work with small mom and pop shops. So we work with everybody, and we want to help everybody do their business better using geography and mapping. We help businesses in a number of ways. We can add context to your data using Esri technology. So we allow you to bring in things like Basemaps. Basemaps help you understand and orient yourself when you're looking at a map. They help you understand features and places and natural landscapes and geography at a core level. It's an orientation tool. We also provide demographics and lifestyle maps. We actually provide you the data so that you don't have to go find it, get it, collect it, process it, and show it on a map. We actually provide some of that stuff for you so that it's really easy to consume and see demographics and spending patterns on your maps and in your business systems. We also provide boundaries and places services to allow you to map things to standard administrative boundaries and find places that you're looking for by searching for them. We have community maps that people contribute to. So it could be anybody from you or I, or it could be partners of Esri, or it could be us ourselves providing authoritative maps that you can use to help understand your communities and neighborhoods a little bit better. We also provide layers of transportation information, things like real-time traffic. Those kinds of services are available through Esri. We provide urban maps and so much more. So hopefully that will kind of get the idea that Esri, our business, is mapping, and we have many years of expertise in it. So that being said, we've noticed that the use of location intelligence is growing. We've observed that most data being collected these days has some location component in it. Many times that will be things like customer addresses, zip codes, postal codes, things like that. But many times people don't take advantage of that data that's sitting in their tables and data lakes. It's just sitting there, not being used. And we can help with that. We see that map-based visualizations are a hugely growing segment of the BI market. More than 60% of people in this Dresner Advisory Services survey say that it's critical or very important to them. And the BI space in general is huge and growing right now, with more than 45% of a Forrester survey. A Forrester survey had 45% of the people saying that they've seen double-digit return on investment with their BI investments. So this is a hot space. There's a big part of it that isn't being used, and that's what we're here for today, is to help you use that unused data in your data warehouse. We do that by partnering with Microsoft and Microsoft Power BI. I would assume that most people on the call today know what Power BI is, but if you don't know Power BI, it is an industry-leading business intelligence solution. It allows you to connect to hundreds of data sources, simplify your data prep, do some analysis on your data, and publish and share the results. With that being said, we at Esri have partnered with Microsoft to create a free map visual called ArcGIS Maps for Power BI. This is a true partnership between Microsoft and Esri. We build it, we ship it to them, and they deploy it inside Power BI. So it's an easy way to get maps into your Power BI reports. This visual is really designed for people who don't have any previous mapping or GIS experience. And we spent a lot of time designing it to make it really easy to use by everybody. So again, as I mentioned, the standard capabilities are available for free inside Microsoft Power BI. It's in the box. We went into general availability in June. So as long as you've updated your Power BI desktop software since June, you will have access to ArcVisual today. Coming soon, we're going to be releasing a series of features called Plus features, and we'll allow people to get Plus subscriptions. And for a small fee, they'll be able to access even more content, things like more base maps, more geocoding, and more layers that you can use inside your maps. And I'll be calling some of that out as we go through the seminar today. So we're going to be talking about 5 ways to boost your business intelligence. What can location intelligence do for you? So we're going to help you map your data sets. And so that's the first thing. The first way to start taking advantage of location intelligence is actually to put your location data, that 80% of information that we were saying that most people aren't using, figuring out how to actually get that on a map is something that we can help you do. So we can also help you visualize your information spatially. Once you've kind of got your data on a map, how can you put information into that, those points and those polygons on the map to actually start getting some more information out of it? Then we can help you determine patterns and relationships by adding some contextual data, understanding a little bit more about what's going on. We'll be diving into each one of these points more thoroughly, but then we'll help you understand how you can understand and take action using those reports and dashboards with your larger reports and dashboards, not just the map visual. And then we'll help you understand how you can go beyond just using dashboards to understand how location intelligence can go beyond just the business intelligence space. So mapping your data sets is getting all of that location information that you have and you aren't using and getting it onto the map. And so there are a couple ways that we can help you do that. And so what we can do is we can help you get your information onto the map as either points or polygons. And so the way you'll do that, you'll interact with ArcVisual, and I'll show you this here in a minute. You interact with ArcVisual by dragging the field that you're wanting to use in Power BI, the one that you're wanting to get on the map, into our location field well. And so when you drag it into that location field well, we're going to do some smarts. We're going to try to figure out what kind of location that is, and we're going to either map it as a point or a polygon. By default, the location field well will probably map your locations as a point. So in the data set that I'm showing towards the bottom of the screen, I've got an address. I've dragged the address field into the location field well, and the points show up on the map. We use the Esri World Geocoding service to do this, and the Esri World Geocoding service is pretty amazing. It supports many data formats above and beyond just addresses, zip codes. It supports military grid reference systems. It supports many, many different things. I would highly suggest that if you're curious more about what kind of things the World Geocoding Service can handle, just Google Esri World Geocoding Service, and there's some really great information on that first page of a Google search. It's extremely high accuracy. It's a really good geocoder, so I would highly encourage you to take full confidence in using the Esri World Geocoder. So as I mentioned earlier, we do offer most of our functionality for free out of the box. One thing that you do need to pay attention to is that if you use the World Geocoding Service to translate your address into a point on the map, you get 1,500 of those for free per map. So if you have data needs above 1,500 points per map, you're going to want to look at maybe this Plus subscription coming out soon, because Plus subscribers get up to 5,000 geocodes per map. Also wanted to mention before we leave the topic of points that if you have latitude, longitude information, you can use latitude, longitude information in our latitude and longitude field wells. I don't want to focus on this too much because I'm assuming most data analysts aren't going to have access to latitude, longitude information, but if you do, then I would highly recommend using it because you have much higher data limits. That you can put 10,000 latitude and longitude points on a map, and it processes much faster because there's no processing that needs to be done. It just can be displayed right on the map. So just a little tip, if you have latitude and longitude, use it. If not, no problem. We can take care of you and just throw your location information at the location field well. The next thing that I want to talk about is mapping polygons or mapping areas in Maps for Power BI. So we have global standard administrative boundaries that you can bind to your data and display those things on the map. We do some smart detection of boundary fields whenever you drag things into the location field well. If we understand that the field that you dragged in is a standard administrative boundary, we're going to go ahead and draw it as an area. But things like postal code, things like zip code, things like country, those are field names that we're going to understand and things that we're going to actually put on the map as a boundary area for you. If we don't detect that it is a boundary area, but you know that it is and you want it to be a boundary area, that's okay too. You can manually define it, and I'll show you how to do that in just a second when we get into a demo. Again, when talking about limits, you can go up to 5,000 polygons per map. And so with that, let's get into our first demo. It's going to be a quick one, but I want to show you this thing instead of just talking about it. So I've brought up on the screen Power BI Desktop, and inside Power BI Desktop, there are a number of visuals that you can use to visualize your data. Ours is this globe in the bottom right. If you hover over it, it will say ArcGIS Maps for Power BI. I'm going to go ahead and add one of those visuals to our report area. So another thing that we can notice there that I want to show you in this data set is I want to actually show you the data that I'm going to be working with. I've loaded up some fake customer data that has a lot of different types of location information, things like state name, things like zip code, things like address, latitude, longitude, etc. So one thing that I do want to point out, and one thing that we do recommend, is that many people will have address information broken out like it is here. Address is in one column, zip is in another column, state name is in another column. We recommend to fit all of those things into one column, and so that's what I've done over here in the full address column, and that's what I'm going to use with my location field well. If I just try to map 724 Marina Village Parkway, there might be a lot of those around the world. So I fully qualify it with address, city, state, and zip. So let's go back and take a look at what that looks like. So I'm going to map the full address field, and I just drag it into the location field well. This activates the Esri map visual, and you'll see our logo and our splash screen start up, and you'll notice that it now loads a map with points on it. And so it's as easy as that to get your points on a map. So if I hover over, I can now see that I'm mapping by full address. So the next way that I wanted to show you is we can map by polygon. So we can map by polygon by dragging something that we know is a standard administrative boundary, something like a zip code. And so we can drag that into our location field well. And what we'll notice is that we're going to get some polygons back. I know that I've filtered down to just show Ohio. If you look, we have some zip codes showing up outside of Ohio, and I want to fix that, and I want to show you guys how to fix that if you run into that in the future. So the next thing that I want to show you is going into the edit mode of the map visual. You'll get more options in this top right-hand menu, and if you click on this ... and then go into edit, we're going to present more options to you in this kind of full screen editing mode. So you'll want to go into location type at this point, and I'm seeing what the problem is right away. I see that it has detected that it's zip codes, but it is using our closest match technology. And so with zip codes, we never want a closest match, we want an exact match. So I can switch that, tell it okay, and everything's going to remap within the state of Ohio in the proper places. So that's one little tip that I wanted to pass along to you guys. If your zip codes or your boundaries are in the wrong place, you can update that. Another thing that I wanted to mention is you can switch back and forth between boundaries and polygons. So if I want to see these as points after all, and I don't want to see those boundaries, I can switch to points, tell it okay, and it's going to switch those over to points at the centroids of each one of those zip codes. So I'm going to switch it back to boundaries just so I can show you some of the location types that we do support. So we do support global standard administrative boundaries. If I drill into any one of these, if I say Turkey, I can look and see what kind of standard administrative boundaries we support in Turkey. We support regions, subregions, postcodes, etc. So this is pretty powerful. It's a globally available system of standard administrative boundaries that you can bind to your data. So let's jump back into the presentation. In that quick demo, we saw how to map your locations on a map using both points and polygons. Pretty simple stuff at this point. Just wanted to show you how to do it and show you where our map visual was. Next thing we're going to talk about is visualizing your data spatially. You don't just have location information. You probably also have other interesting information in your data sets, things like sales data or purchase information. And so I'm going to walk through how you can get some of that information into your map a couple different ways. So when you're visualizing your data, there's a couple things you need to be aware of. The first thing is that you can change your base map. And base maps are those maps, the reference information behind your business data layers. So in the top right-hand corner, we can see that I'm using a dark gray canvas, and that's really to give you the basics, let you orient yourself, figure out kind of where you are, but really let the data speak for itself and kind of pop off of that map. We also have a couple other different types of base map options, which I'll talk about in just a second. Other ways to get information across to your map reader is by using size information, by using color of the points and the locations that you're putting on the map, or by using both of them together, by using size and color together to do what we call bivariate rendering. So let me talk a little bit more about each one of those things. So base maps, they provide reference information. As I mentioned earlier, we have dark gray canvas, and that's really designed to kind of fade into the background and let your data pop off of it. We also have street-based maps, and so those will provide information about specific streets. It'll provide a lot more data for your users to see, but it's also a lot more visually busy. So it sometimes will compete with your data for the attention of the mapper, so be careful in choosing your base maps. And we also have imagery, and so imagery is a feature, or it's a base map that's going to be available to our Plus subscribers, and so it helps you actually see what's on the ground in specific locations around the locations that are coming from your data sets. It's something that people have asked for a while, and it will be available via Plus subscriptions starting next week. So again, out of the box, users will get dark gray canvas, light gray canvas, streets, and OpenStreetMap base maps. And Plus subscribers as of next week are going to get imagery, National Geographic, oceans, terrain, topographic, and the USGS national map. So a bit more coming in terms of base maps. The first way to start getting your information into those points and locations that you're adding to your map is by using size, and using size to visualize that information coming from your data sets. So what I've done is I've bound sales information from my data set to my point locations. And so as you can see on the map, areas that have, or points that have low values are being represented on this screenshot with small symbols. Points that have high values or high sales values show up as large symbols, which makes it really easy to kind of scan across the map and see where low performing or low sales value customers are and high sales value customers are. So this is a quick way to start to visualize your information. Another way to visualize your information is by using color. And so color is a little bit more robust. You can use it with a few more data types. With size, that's really limited to points. Whereas with color, it can be used to visualize either numeric information or categorical information. And it can be used to visualize both points and polygons. So a couple examples that I'm showing here on the screen. On the left, I'm showing some numeric data values that are being used to be represented by color. And one of the more interesting things that we have here is on the left side is our configuration control panel. So map authors can go in and really tweak how color is being applied to these locations. And so at the bottom, you'll see a little kind of vertical histogram with a color ramp. And so that allows our map authors to grab those little handles and see to the right the histogram of their data values. So you can actually specifically pick out which little spikes and bumps and dips in your data that you want visualized with what colors. So this is a really powerful tool. I'll show it to you in just a second. But again, you can visualize numeric information using color both for polygons and for points. Same way for categorical data. You can visualize things like sales territories. You can say this is Sue's sales territory and this is Joe's sales territory, and visualize those different territories using different colors. In this example, I'm visualizing some information about insurance policies. I'm visualizing auto policies in red, and I'm visualizing home policies in blue. And so that's what you're seeing on the map in both point and polygon form. You can also, as I mentioned earlier, use size and color together. And so I've kind of combined those two concepts here, and I'm using size to visualize my sales values, and I'm using color to visualize my types of policies. So again, it gets a lot of information onto the map very, very quickly. So it's really easy to just scan across this very information-dense map and understand what's going on with your customers or with your locations that are important to you. So with that, it's time for our next demo. I want to show you how to use some of this stuff. So again, I've got a blank report in Power BI, and I've got a new data set. I have got the insurance policy information that I was talking about just a minute ago. So we've got some first names, some last names, their email address. Again, this is fake. Don't go try to email any of these people. These are fake addresses, and we've got policy types and policy values. So we can use all of this information on the map to show those things that I was just talking about. So let's go ahead and add a map to our report area and drag address into our location field well. So again, our map lights up. It starts sending those address pieces to our World Geocoding service, and then they will be returned and placed on the map. You'll be able to see that we have customers throughout the southeast of the United States. And I can start working with this data now that I've got my points on my map. The things that I want to do is I want to show you how easy it is to get my policy value information into our size field well. So I just drag and drop policy value field, size field well, and now we can see all of our different policy values on the map using size to indicate high and low values. So pretty easy. I can also drag my policy value down into the color field well to show you how we can use color to kind of show the same thing. It's pretty easy stuff. So now what I can do is I can go back into my edit mode, and in edit mode we're going to get some more options on how to adjust these settings if I want to make things stand out a little bit more. So if I go into symbol style, that is where I'm going to really adjust how my points are visualized using color. I can change the number of classes from 5 down to 3, and you can see my color ramp histogram change down here at the bottom. I can grab these handles and say I really only want, let's say, this bump at the very top to be the very darkest ones, and I want to go at least above average with the lighter beigeish color to kind of make all those fade out. And the map updates and adjusts in real time, and so the color helps me pick out those really high value insurance policies. As I mentioned, we can use both size and color together, and so I'll show you that by just dragging policy type, which is going to be auto or car or commercial. I can drag that into our color field well, and so that's going to visualize our points based on color, and then I can also bring my policy values into the size field well to use both of those pieces of information together on the map. And again, that's showing a lot of information really quickly, easily able to scan across the map and see what kinds of customers I have and where my important ones are. I can look down here in my symbol style side pane, and this allows me to tweak all of that information. So if I don't want cars showing up as red, I can show cars as any of these Power BI default colors up here. So I might want to use purple instead. And so there we go. It's pretty easy. The map updates immediately, and easy stuff. One other thing that I do want to mention during this demo, I wanted to show you our base map options. Really easy to switch base maps. I'm currently using our light gray canvas. I just go over to the base map tab in the toolbar and choose dark gray canvas. And that will load and show me my dark gray canvas, and my data really kind of stands off of that pretty well. One other thing that I do want to mention, I did say that we have more base maps coming. Those are going to be available next week with our Plus subscription, and I just kind of wanted to give you a view of what that looks like. So I'm in our development environment here, and we can see that we've got dark gray canvas like we did before, but we're also going to have access to imagery with labels, National Geographic base map, and more. Those plus features, you'll notice, have this little plus icon next to them, so you'll know when you're using plus features and not using plus features. So that being said, just wanted to kind of give you a sneak preview of what that looks like. So with that, I think that's good for our second demo. Let me switch back into my presentation view. So to review, in that demo, we saw that map tools can help you tell a really good story about your data. Get your information out of your tables and onto a map so that you can really easily visually see what's going on. Base maps can help orient the map reader and help you emphasize your data. And data values can be visualized in a number of ways using size, color, or both of them together. So the next topic that we want to talk about is helping you determine patterns in relationships using maps. So determining patterns in relationships, we can help you in a number of different ways. We can help you aggregate your points together to show high-level patterns. That's pretty helpful because a lot of times we'll get so many points on the map that you can't really understand what's going on. So you really need to have some way to aggregate them and show the general high-level patterns. We can do that with tools such as heat maps and clustering, which I'll show you here in a minute. We can also help you identify points of interest. You can search out things that are interesting to you and select locations that are nearby. We'll get into that just a little bit more in a few minutes. We also have time animation capabilities. So if you have time data, you can animate your data through time to see patterns and trends as it plays back in front of you. You can also add context to your business data with demographics. Again, I talked about some of those demographic layers that we provide from Esri. You can pull those layers into your map and lay them behind your business data to actually start to understand those patterns and relationships between your business and the population that lives in the area that your business operates in. You can also use layers from ArcGIS to help you understand your business data in other ways, and we'll get into that more in a minute. So aggregations, again, as I mentioned, they help you see patterns. On the left, I've got a number of points. It just kind of looks like a mess, points all over the map. On the right, I've applied a heat map to those very same points. And so the heat map is actually just showing me a density of how many locations I have or how many points I have. And so it really draws your eye to the bottom right-hand corner. It's got a high density around Orlando. And so if I'm looking at the map on the left, my eye might not be drawn to that area. Whereas with the heat map, my eye goes right to that bottom right-hand corner and says, hey, there's a lot of something going on here. So that can be very useful. We can also help you identify points of interest, as I was mentioning. We do that through our tools called pins and drive times. And so pins allow you to search for locations, whether it be points of interest or addresses or city names, as I've done here with Hattiesburg. And they allow you to add those pins to the map permanently. And so your business data might be changing all the time. You might have this connected up, you might have Power BI connected up to your transactional database system, and so you have customer information passing through and changing all the time, and you really want some locations to be on your map all the time. That's what pins are for. So you might put those, again, at store locations or franchise locations, places that you don't want to move and change from map load to map load. We also allow you to do drive time areas, and those pair nicely with pins because you can say, give me a 30-minute drive time around my store there in Hattiesburg and show me the customers that are within that 30-minute drive time area. It's pretty nice to know who is in the area where your stores are located. As mentioned, we allow time animation, so you can see patterns and trends through time. We have simply a time field well. You can drag your fields that have time information in it into the time field well, and we will add a little playback control at the bottom of your map, and you can play it and just let it loop through, or you can manually scrub through and examine different points in time. In this example, I'm showing coal generation facilities in the Florida area. And so we're also looking at SO2 emissions from those coal plants. And so we can see on the left, we can see the mid-1990s and how many tons of SO2 were being produced at that time. And as we go to the image on the right, we're looking at those same facilities and their SO2 tonnage being emitted into the atmosphere in the 2013 to 2015 timeframe. And so it helps us understand what's happening over time. There was a lot more going on in the 90s than there were later in the 2000s. So that might be something interesting to investigate. So we'll take a look at that one actually in the demo in just a few minutes. As mentioned, you can bring in demographics, and this is generally what one of those demographic maps will look like. I brought in a demographic map showing population projections from 2016 to 2021. And so we're looking at the Houston area, we're looking at customer points on the map, and that green layer behind is our demographic layer. And so areas in dark green are showing areas that are projected to have a lot of population growth between 2016 and 2021, and the areas that are kind of a light green or almost a gray, those are areas that are projected to have low population growth. And so when we put our customers over top of that, we can see that there are several areas where we have customers in high growth areas, but more interestingly, we see a few high growth areas in the Houston area that we don't have any customers. And so that might be an area that we would want to focus on in the future. You can also see that I've clicked on one of those areas. And when you click on one of those areas in our demographic maps, it will give you a more detailed explanation and understanding of what's actually going on in that particular area. So there's a lot of stuff going on there. I know that's a fairly busy map, but that's a lot of information that's valuable to you. I was talking to a guy at the PASS Summit a week or two ago, and he was telling me he was using this information to help with decision support. They were trying to figure out which regional office to expand and to grow, and they used to, okay, if the population is growing in this regional office area and not that one, maybe we should focus our resources and our efforts here. So that's one way that you can use these demographic maps to help with your business. Another thing I want to call out are the infographics cards that I've added to the map. Those are the white cards in the upper right-hand corner. I've added US total population and per capita income. And so those are little bits of information that are relevant to the screen that you're looking at right now. So as I would pan and zoom the map around, those numbers will update, and I'll show you that here in just a second. You can also use layers from ArcGIS to help understand your business data a little bit better. These layers on ArcGIS, they can be published by Esri. They can be published by Esri's business partners. They can also be published by you. They can be published by anybody. And so if you have information that you want to get into your Maps for Power BI map, publishing it to ArcGIS and then pulling it in as a reference layer is the way that you do that. So just as examples, on the bottom left, I pulled in weather stations across Utah. And so every one of those little sunny icons is representing sunny weather in Utah at the time that this reference layer was accessed. As the weather goes bad, or as weather stations experience inclement weather, those would change, giving you kind of an updated view of what the weather's doing in the locations that are important to you. In the middle, we've got trail maps. So we've got trails in the Austin area. And so if you want to use the topographic map and put some of the trails against them, it's a really nice resource to kind of show where trails are, where the hills are, where trailheads might be, stuff like that. We also have on the very far right a more business-oriented application. If you've got sales territories that you want to bring in and put behind your customer data or your leads data, you can publish sales territories to ArcGIS and pull those in. And so you might understand where Sue's territory is and where Joe's territory is and which leads are in which territory. And so that's a really helpful way to visualize that information. So let's take a look at what this actually looks like. So in this map that I already have created, we're looking at those generation facilities in Florida that I was showing you a minute ago. So what I can do right away is zoom back a little bit, and I can show you how we can aggregate these together to view high-level patterns and trends. So I'm going back into edit mode, just like in a couple times already, and I can go into the map theme area. So the map theme helps me get more information or get more ways of visualizing my data. And so right now, because I'm only using location information, the only options that I have are to aggregate it. And so I can aggregate it through heat maps. So it's really simple. I just click on the heat map. Or if I don't like heat maps, I can use clustering. And so clustering, both of these actually are scale dependent. And so as I zoom in and out, those clusters break apart and reform. Same way with heat maps. As I'm zoomed out, the pattern's a little bit differently than if I zoom in. So I'm going to go back to my location only view, but I did want to show you how you can do aggregation if you want to. The next thing that I want to show while I'm here in edit mode is I want to show pins and drive times that I talked about. So for pins, I want to pin a location in, let's say, Tampa, Florida. Let's see, Tampa, Florida. So I went to my pins tool. I typed in Tampa, Florida, and I'm going to pick Tampa, Florida right there. And so now I have a pin located in the Tampa area. As I mentioned during our earlier talk, the pins pair really well with drive times. So I'm going to switch over to my drive time tool. And it prompts me to select a location on the map to create a drive time around. So I'm going to pick this area that I just selected or that I just created. And you'll notice that my area on the left changed. I can create a search area that's either a drive time or a radius. So if I don't really care about drive times, I can just create a circle around this area. But I do like drive times. And so I want to create, let's say, a 30-minute drive time around the Tampa area. And you'll see that pretty quickly it creates this area that from this point you could drive to in 30 minutes. You can also see that there are a number of points around this area. I can also use selection tools, which I'll talk about a little bit later, to find out exactly which points are inside this area. So we noticed there are just a handful, even though it looked like there were several on the periphery. So I'm going to go ahead and clear that. And I just wanted to highlight that that's a pretty neat feature. That's something that you're not going to find too many other places. This drive time tool, especially combined with the pins, is a pretty powerful feature for spatial analysis. So let's go ahead and get rid of that. I don't really want to do anything with that at this time. I can get rid of the pin as well. I just click on delete, remove, and it clears my map off. And so what I can start doing now is I want to visualize that information that I was talking about before, that SO2 tonnage. So I'm going to look in my extensive list of fields over here, and I'm going to find SO2 tonnage. And I'm going to bring that into the size field well. And I'm going to visualize each one of these facilities. I can aggregate that by itself, and it's showing me a sum, which is what I want. And so now what I can do is I can go grab my time field well. I also have time information in here. When I drag that into the time field well, I'm going to get a playback tool here on the bottom of the map. It's going to adjust the look and feel of the map based on the different points in time. So I'm going to go back into the report mode. And I'm going to try adding my SO2 tonnage again. I'm not seeing that yet. Let's bring SO2 tons back in. There we go. And so now we have our SO2 tonnage split out over time, and I can play this. And so we can watch, as I mentioned earlier, as the SO2 tonnage from these generation facilities decreases over time. So you'll see it just kind of dwindle, dwindle, dwindle. And if we go and combine that with some other information, I'm going to switch report tabs now. And so when I combine that with actual tonnage over time, we can actually see that in around the, let's say, late 90s, there was some regulations that happened. And so we actually know that at that time period, regulations happened and all the plants started either installing scrubbers or reducing their emissions in other ways. And we can see that dwindle down. So it's really powerful to be able to see both map data and chart data side by side and watch as these regulations are taking effect. And you can actually see that in our data set. Pretty cool. So a few other things that I do want to talk about before we end this particular demo. I want to show you our demographic reference layers. So I'm going to go back into edit mode. And so in this specific instance, we may want to know, okay, if there's still a lot of SO2 emissions happening here in this area, how is that affecting the population around it? So I can go into my reference layers area, and you can see that we have included some demographic reference layers. And so I can add, let's say, US population density. And so this is going to add that reference layer behind where dark orange values are showing high population density, light yellowish areas are low population density. So we can see that in this area, there's generally not a high population density. Might not be a big deal unless the wind is blowing east, in which case these communities could be affected. Kind of interesting stuff. I also want to show you infographics. So infographics is another way to get more population information on the map visual. So I can add, let's say, total population for now. And so it's telling me that in this current view, this current map window, the latest 2016 census shows a population of about 1 million. So I can drill in, and you'll notice that demographic layer breaks apart and adjusts based on the zoom level. But this infographics card also adjusts to show me that in this view level, the area that I'm viewing right now, there's only about 68,000 people. So as I pan over, I might want to take a look at that high population density area. We can see that, okay, there are more people in this area, maybe about 140,000 people in this general area. So infographics are a neat tool to play around with to kind of get a feel for the population characteristics in an area. And finally, I want to show you how you can bring some layers from ArcGIS that aren't these demographic layers, the ones that are pre-included. You can also go out and search ArcGIS for other layers. Anything that you can think of, you can search for. I know that there's some Florida layers with the recent flooding showing a storm surge area. And so I can search for storm surge, I can add that, and so then I get my storm surge areas. And so now I can visualize which of these generation facilities might be at risk of flooding in the future. So lots of opportunities, lots of possibilities here by bringing in ArcGIS information and combining it with your Power BI reports and dashboards. So let me switch back to our presentation here. And so in review, heat maps help you aggregate your points together to show high-level patterns. Pins and drive times help you find nearby locations and start to understand what's close to the places that are important to you. The time field helps you animate your data through time. Infographics and demographics help you put your data into context. And reference layers from ArcGIS are pretty cool, and it's how you get any other kinds of spatial data that you want to see on your map onto the map. So the next section is understanding and taking action. So we've been very focused on talking about what the map can do for you and how to use the map tools so far. So we're going to take a step back in this section and look at the larger report it's not just about the map. It's about what your report can do with all the different visuals that are on it. And the map is one of those visuals. And one thing that we really want to kind of drive home, and one of the important things that we built into Maps for Power BI is the ability to make selections on the map and drive filtering and highlighting capabilities in your other visuals and vice versa. So that's a really important capability I want to show in just a second. Another thing about understanding and being able to take action once you've made some of these cool insights and you visualize your information in a really compelling way is being able to share your analyses. And so Maps for Power BI is available on the desktop, it's available in Power BI Service Cloud, and it's available on mobile. At the current time, it's not available in embedded or published to web, so that is a limitation at the current time, but it is available, again, in desktop, cloud, and mobile, so you can share your analyses with your stakeholders and people that are important in your organization. So to do a quick demo, this is more of a demo around a use case. So it's not as much of a feature functioning demo, but what we're showing here is we're showing online sales analysis. So we have people who have bought things online, we've shipped them out, and so now we're mapping where those shipments have gone, and we're visualizing the size based on the size of the purchase at each one of those locations. So this is pretty interesting stuff. I can see generally where my customers are, but when I start to look at it in context with the rest of the visuals, I can gain a lot more information. So to explain what we're looking at on the report, we have what look like right now are the same thing, but we're showing the breakout of our sales. The one on the left is going to show me selections that I make on the map, and it's going to allow me to compare to my overall sales. So I know that most of my sales are sunglasses, but I've also got a lot of jewelry, I've got some scarves, and I've got some other things as well, some handbags. And so what I was talking about making selections on the map, this is really a critical piece. We can use these selection tools on the map to start to do some light spatial analysis. I want to say, tell me about the customers that are up here. What are those customers like? And so you'll notice that my visuals changed when I made that selection. Most of the people that I just selected are purchasing sunglasses or jewelry, a little bit of scarves, and no handbags. And so that's pretty interesting. I can start to ask questions about why. Why are the people up there not buying handbags? How might I reach them more effectively? Those kinds of questions are pretty important. I can clear my selection. I can also drive interaction the other way. So let's say I want to see where are my jewelry purchases going. I can click on the jewelry section of the chord diagram, and it shows me just the jewelry purchases. If I clear that and want to say, look at where my sunglasses purchases are going, I can also do that using the visual up there at the top. The final piece that I want to talk about that I haven't discussed yet is these red lines on the map. So this is a layer coming from ArcGIS, and if you're familiar with marketing and sales, you might be already familiar with designated market areas. If you're not, these are areas that you can, if you buy ads into certain markets, these are the areas where the people will see those ads. So in this Florida area, in this Tallahassee designated market area, I might want to say I'm planning an ad buy for the Tallahassee area. I want to know what my customers are like in that area. So I'm going to switch into my third map selection mode, which is select locations using a reference layer. And so I'm going to make this selection now of the Tallahassee market area. You'll see that all the other purchases fade away, and you'll see that my visuals have updated to tell me about those specific people in the Tallahassee market area. I can start to see some interesting things. I can see that they don't buy nearly as many sunglasses as my overall customer base. We can see that they buy way more scarves, maybe not as much jewelry. So this can help me start to plan out, how do I want to target these people? If I know that sunglasses are a strong seller, and Tallahassee folks don't buy my sunglasses as much, maybe I want to put some sunglasses ads into the Tallahassee market area. So this is how you can start to bring it all together and use your map layers from ArcGIS in conjunction with your other visuals in Power BI to actually start to drive understanding and start to figure out how you might want to take action on that. So I'm going to jump back over to my presentation, and we're going to talk about how you can go beyond dashboards. So we've been talking today about ArcGIS Maps for Power BI, which is a small piece of ArcGIS that is within Power BI. With ArcGIS Maps for Power BI, you can do descriptive analytics. You can really describe what's happened or understand what's been happening within your business, but that's about where ArcGIS Maps for Power BI stops. If you want to go into diagnostic types of analytics, where you can ask and begin to understand root causes of why things are happening, there are some other tools available as well. Things like Insights for ArcGIS. We have a tool called ArcGIS Business Analyst. Those tools are more designed towards answering those kinds of questions. There are also, as you continue along your location intelligence journey, gaining more skills and gaining more experience, you'll get into wanting to do predictive analysis and understand what's likely to happen at a given location. And to answer those kinds of questions, we have tools like ArcGIS Pro, as well as our APIs and SDKs that are more geared towards developers to build into other systems. So again, ArcGIS is very large and very broad, and we do many things in our effort to bring the power of GIS to everybody. We really want everybody to be able to use geography and location to do their work better. We have tools that help you do field data collection. Whether you're out in the field and you want to say, hey, there's a broken pipe here, I want it to be recorded and go back into my back office where somebody can take action and make a map from it. We have business apps like the ones I've been talking about today. We have design apps that allow you to bring your maps that you've stored in ArcGIS and bring them directly into Adobe Creative Cloud and actually do design work based on them. We have simple map viewer apps, story maps, and other kinds of dashboards. You can really go beyond just simple dashboarding when you invest in ArcGIS as a platform. It can really give your business a lot of value. But to bring it back to what we've been talking about today, ArcGIS Maps for Power BI, as I mentioned early on, it's available inside Power BI for free. Next week, we're going to be launching Plus and Plus subscriptions for ArcGIS Maps for Power BI. And the way that you get into those, you sign into Power BI, you'll look for the ArcGIS Maps for Power BI icon that I've been using today, and you'll notice a new icon in the top right-hand corner that says Get Started or Upgrade to Plus, and you can sign up for a Plus subscription. If you want to learn more about this, you can go out to esri.com/PowerBI, and we've got more information about exactly what's included in Plus. With that, we appreciate your attention and your time. We have received quite a number of questions. I also recognize that it is 11 o'clock, so if you need to drop off because of time issues, feel free to do so. I'm going to spend probably the next 5 to 10 minutes answering these questions, and if you want to stick around, please do. If not, there will be a recording available later that you'll have access to if you need to go right now. So with that said, there were a lot of questions about geocoding, and so what I'm reading here, how do I exceed the geocoding limit? Talk more about the geocoding service, and what is that 1,500 in relation to? I mentioned there was a limit of 1,500 geocodes per map, and that's exactly what it is. Each map, if it's using the address geocoder, it can display 1,500 locations at a time. So if your data set is bigger than that, it will get chopped at 1,500. If you need larger data set sizes, you'll probably want to use latitude and longitude if possible. If not, the Plus subscription will be available starting next week, which will give you access to 5,000 geocodes per map visual. So you can absolutely get clever with that. You can add a couple different map visuals onto a given report or dashboard and have each one filtered a certain way to get you below those data limits. There's a lot of ways that you can work with that, but yeah, the limit is for the free visual 1,500 geocodes per map. It's not over time. It's not. It's just at an instantaneous moment. It will show you 1,500 geocodes. So the next question is, can we consume ArcGIS Maps or feature services or our own base maps? So we get this question a lot, primarily from people who are existing ArcGIS customers. So we've designed this map visual for people who are not ArcGIS customers today. That's where we started. We really wanted to kind of expand and help people who aren't familiar with mapping and aren't mapping experts get into it. So the tie back to ArcGIS is not a strong one. As you saw in the webinar, I was able to search for things that were published to ArcGIS. Some of the details around that, if you are familiar with ArcGIS, you can publish feature services and share them with everyone to ArcGIS Online. If you do both of those things, you'll be able to search within Power BI and find your layers as reference layers. At the current time, we're not allowing people to use their own base maps, but in 2018, that is something that we're going to be working on. We're going to be allowing people to sign in using their own ArcGIS accounts if they're already ArcGIS customers, or if they want to become ArcGIS customers, we're going to let you create things privately within your own ArcGIS organization, create your own custom base maps if that's something that you want to do, and access those within ArcGIS Maps for Power BI. Again, that's something that's not available today, but that's something that we're going to be working on and making available in 2018. Okay, another question, a really great one, is the content US only? And so for demographics and infographics, some of those last things that I talked about on the webinar, those in the free version are US based, and they're a little bit limited. There are 10 demographic US based layers. For the reference layers, there are probably 60 to 65 infographic variables. Those are US based. That will be different for Plus subscribers. Plus subscribers will have access to global infographics. So we'll crack open our entire geo-enrichment service, and that's thousands and thousands of variables that you'll be able to use as infographics globally. And we'll also be making available what we call our Esri Living Atlas, which is a browsable global data set that allows you to pull in global information pretty easily. So I can actually show that very quickly. Again, I'm pulling up my development environment here. I'm showing some Plus features. These are the Plus base maps. Again, I can use imagery if I want to, but if I go over into reference layer, what Plus subscribers will see is they'll see a new tab. In addition to the US-based demographics that everybody has, the capability to search ArcGIS for publicly shared layers, they'll also have access to browse the Living Atlas. And so when I click on this Living Atlas tab, it does have the little icon to denote that it is a Plus feature. And I can browse through themes. And so to start, we're offering boundaries and places, demographics, landscape, transportation. And so if I go into boundaries and places, that updates what I'm looking at down below. And I can see that I have global boundaries. If I want to just bring in global boundaries, I have in alphabetical order here, Albania, Algeria, Angola, Argentina, etc. And so I can bring those in for use in making selections or just seeing where boundaries are on the map. So that global and international data will be coming with Plus subscriptions. A follow-on question to that is, how do we do international addresses? It says we don't use zip codes. And so you would do it the same way. Our world geocoding service is truly a world geocoding service. So you would want to format your address the way that you format it locally. And if you need to concatenate multiple fields into one field, like I did earlier, you would just do that with the relevant fields, and then you would drag it into the location field well, and our world geocoding service will take it from there. Okay, I've been talking a little bit about Plus, and we got another question about how much does Plus cost. So Plus is going to be available at $5 per month per user. So you can subscribe to our Plus subscriptions for $5 per month per user. To start, that's going to be an individual thing that each person will need to do. And Eventually, we're looking at ways to allow entire organizations to purchase Plus across their organization. That's not going to be available to begin. Again, to begin, you'll go to the visual. It will say, do you want to sign up? Click on sign up. That will take you to an Esri e-commerce site where you'll put in your contact information, you'll put in your email address, and you'll put in some credit card information, and then say go. And so when you say go, when you submit your information, you're going to get 60 days for free. And so you'll get your chance to see if this is something that you want to do. You can cancel at any time. And then at the end of your free 60 days, it's going to start billing that card for $5 per month. Another kind of follow-on to that is that each person that creates a map with Plus content will need a Plus subscription, and each person that views a map with Plus content will need a Plus subscription. So if I want my boss to see something that I'm creating with my Plus content, then we will both need to be Plus subscribers for him to see that. If I'm a Plus subscriber and he's not, and I create a map that has some of this Plus content in it, when he goes to open it, it's going to say, sorry, this map has Plus content in it. You're not a Plus subscriber. Please subscribe here, and we'll guide you through that process. Okay, and so there's been another question. This is, can I use your product without Power BI? I'm not sure exactly where that question's going. So as I was kind of mentioning towards the end of the webinar, ArcGIS is a larger thing. ArcGIS is its own platform and has a number of products and services that you can take advantage of without Power BI at all. That being said, ArcGIS Maps for Power BI, the specific product that I've been talking about and showing today, that product is only available inside Power BI. It's something that we developed in partnership with Microsoft. We build it here at Esri, and we give it to Microsoft, and Microsoft puts it inside Power BI. So that's how it's that default option that you don't need to download. So that particular product is not available outside Power BI, but ArcGIS as a whole has many, many apps and services that you can use outside of Power BI. All right, well, I think we're right at 10 minutes after. We're good with questions, and I think we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. On behalf of Mallory and Dot and myself and all of Esri, I want to say thank you for tuning in today. Thanks for listening, and please go play with ArcGIS Maps for Power BI.